Good morning everybody, happy Friday and big welcome to our Friday live class. So today, well just during the week I've had a lot of inquiries about Holy Communions. So there previously you can see one of the other days I did a Holy Communion basket. So I thought today let's do a little flower crown, or what we often call a little headdress, for a Holy Communion child, our first Holy Communion as it would be called in Ireland. Now remember, this can also be used for a flower girl for a wedding, so if anybody has any weddings coming up, this would be an ideal little decoration for their hairs, but also for any special occasions, even for an adult. Maybe like a hen's party, maybe even for the actual bride-to-be. So if you do have any questions, obviously post all your questions in the comments and I will respond back to everybody. But as usual, we'll do our introductions. So if anybody is watching, hopefully there's somebody watching, make sure that you comment below, let us know where you're watching in from. And as usual, we always want to know what's the weather forecast like around the country. Is the sun shining or is it raining in your part of the world? The other thing we always ask you about is what's the chances of sharing our videos. Remember, we depend on you, the public, our followers, to build up our analytics and get our reach out there on Facebook. And the only way we can do that is by you actually clicking share. Share it to your own page. The advantage of sharing it to your own page is you can always re-watch it again in the future if you ever get an order to do one of these, or share it to a group that you're a member of. If you have a notebook and pen, I need you to write down a few little ingredients that you may need, or that you will need. So first of all, you're going to need a roll of gutted tape. This comes in green or white. For the flower crown that I'm going to make today, I'm choosing to use the white, but green will be perfect. Next thing you need is 20 gauge wires. So either by 10 or 12 inch in length, it's up to yourself. You'll see the way I'll build up in the length in the wires as I actually require them. So some 20 gauge wires. And also what you need is some silver wires. So little fine silver wires, or stitching wires as we call them. Some people call them rose wires, and the best gauge for them is 26 or 28 gauge. So to go back over again, you need a roll of white gutted, 20 gauge wires, not 22, and silver wires, either 26 or 28 gauge. You're also going to need some Freesia, because I'm going to use Freesia today. But listen, if you would prefer to make it in different types of flowers, like maybe spray roses, Germanese, orchids, standard roses, I have lots of videos, okay, showing how to use all the different flowers. And where with our live class we're restricted, we can only do the video from a certain distance. When we do our pre-recorded online tutorials, we are able to come in from different angles and come in really close and show you all the techniques. So we do actually have a standalone, as we call it, online tutorial showing you how to do, is that 4 or 5? Can't actually remember. 4 or 5 different types of flower crowns, and these can be used for weddings, for hen's parties, or do you know what, even if you're just going to a festival. So flower wise, I would recommend around 12 to 15 stems of your Freesia, and these Freesias are already blown. I have them in a couple of days in advance, and for our tutorial on how to condition and treat Freesias, best thing to do is go to our YouTube channel. So what do we do? First of all, I'm cutting our Freesia heads approximately, you know what I mean, 1.5 to 2 centimeters. This particular stem has 3 bells on it, like I don't count the buds. So if you find that you have more than 2, I'm going to remove one of the bells, but just make sure that you take it off and you can actually get the leaf at the bottom. I'll show you this one individually. With the stem now that has the 2 bells, 2 flowers on it, using one of the silver wires, about a third from the bottom, I'm going to insert the silver wire right through one head, through the opposite head, okay, so it's going through the 2 heads at the same time, to the halfway mark, bend down the 2 wires at the same time, cup it in around the stem. Do you remember I said about the 1.5 centimeters of stem? And then using our gutted tape, I'm now going to seal the ends of it, okay? So I'm wrapping the tape around, and I'll do a separate tutorial on gutted taping, and again, you'll also find that on our YouTube channel. For the single little bell, a third from the bottom, I'm going to insert the silver wire, 2 wires here. They're very fine, and sometimes it's so easy to pick up 2 of them at the same time. There we go. So stick our silver wire through one side until it comes through the other to the halfway mark. Gently bend down both sides of the wire. Try and do that at the same time. If you pull one side down and then pull the other side down, what will happen is you'll actually rip down through the flower. I then cupped in the 2 pieces of silver wire close to the stem and I taped it. Now, if you missed that, I'm now going to do it again. Remember, on our online tutorials, it's all up close and personal, where you will be able to see it from all different angles, and obviously different flowers have different techniques. Now again, this stem has more than 2 bells, so I'm just going to remove one of them. I'm actually going to remove the next one because there was about 3.5. You can see there's still like a lot of open flower there. So using our silver wire, I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way up. Again, I have 2 heads, 2 wires together. 1/3 of the way up from the bottom, through one flower head, through the other flower head to the halfway mark. Gently at the same time bend down both sides of the wire. Cup it around the stem, the 1.5 centimeters of stem that we left, and again we're going to gutta tape it. The idea of the gutta tape is that you can seal in the end of the flower, and the flower then will live off the moisture within the stem. But I have some more tips and tricks to show you about preconditioning the flowers for a flower crown and how you can prolong the life of them. So there's all our flowers wired up, but obviously for that one was a bit damaged, so I'm not going to use it. For speed, I have a lot of the flower heads wired up already. Now, I wired up all these flower heads yesterday, as in Thursday, so besides the ones you've just seen me do. And what I have here is my hydration chamber, and I have these boxes in lots of different sizes. Now, in the summertime, I place these boxes in my fridge, so you obviously need smaller boxes that will fill actually into the shelf of your fridge. But at this time of the year, it's pretty cold, you know that way. And for anybody watching this video at a later stage, I'm videoing this early March. So it's still pretty cold. And here in the school, we have lots of classrooms that we don't use. There's no heating on, so I don't need a fridge. I can just place these boxes. So what I do is, yesterday, I have all the flowers. So these have all been, as I said, pre-organised. They're all wired and they're all taped kind of in advance, okay? So here's all our heads. Do you remember I said about 10 or 12 stems, okay? Some of the stems I was only able to get one like clump of flowers, and then some of them I was able to remove like the individual bell, so I ended up getting 2 flowers out of the one stem. A little tip for you, if you're ever buying freesias, see is it possible to get double freesias, okay? These aren't doubles, they weren't available, but if you can get them, they are a much better, longer lasting freesia. Now, how the hydration chamber works. In the end of it, this is literally just wet kitchen towel, you know that way, so just cleaning cloths that we use here at the school, just rest into the end of the box. And as you've seen, I placed all the flowers then on top of the damp tissue paper. You then seal it, you put your lid back on there, nice and secure. If it's the summertime, or again, we have people watching here from warm countries, so again, anybody that's just joining us, let us know where you're watching in from. If you do have any friends who are interested in flowers, tag them so that they can join us, or they can watch this at a later stage. But also, we'd really appreciate if you shared it either directly onto your own personal Facebook page, and if you do happen to be a member of a flower group, or to be honest, any kind of group, share it there as well. So back to our hydration chamber, what I normally do then is, if it's winter time, springtime, when it's a bit cooler in Ireland, obviously it is that little bit cooler, I just place this in a cold room. It's absolutely perfect. And I would get away with wiring and taping up them flowers up to 2 days in advance of the actual occasion. I'll let you in on a little secret. I could actually wire and tape up these flowers, place them in the hydration chamber 10 days in advance. And when I take them out of the box in 10 days, try it, because I know some of you are watching and you probably don't believe me. When I take the flowers out in 10 days time, they will look perfect. The only thing is, when I then go to use them for wedding, they're not going to last. So the secret is 1 or 2 days in advance of the wedding. And you know, flowers that wouldn't normally last out of water, maybe like astrantia, sometimes gyp can dry up, mimosa, a lot of them kind of like short lasting flowers, or that don't last out of water. By doing this treatment of the hydration chamber, it's like it really hydrates the flowers, you know, the way overnight or over 2 nights, and your flowers will be in top class condition and will last a lot longer out of water. So it's a great tip. So now we're back to our flower crown. So I've all the flowers wired and taped. As I said, I'll organise a lot in advance just to kind of speed up this tutorial. And then I've just cut up short little pieces of eucalyptus. Now you can use any foliage that you prefer. So some of the foliage kind of is a slightly larger leaf. They're obviously all off the same eucalyptus tree, but we have our juvenile and we have our senior ones, you know, that way. So some of them are a little bit larger. You can see where I cut the sprigs like that. And some of them then is the newer growth, you know what I mean? So again, it's nice and light. So I have a couple of them kind of cut up. Now back to our materials. So as I said at the beginning, you will need 20 gauge wires. And for anyone now that's unsure how to go to tape, I'm going to show you how to do this pretty fast, okay? But as I said, I have a slow motion tutorial. It's just I've shown this lots of times, okay? And I do have a slow motion video on our YouTube channel, Case Flower School, and you will be able to watch it there. Or again, if you purchase our standalone online flower crown course, which I'll place in the comments below, the link below, and you will be able to then watch it like all in slow motion and also from different angles. Have we got a discount code, Deirdre, for anybody?
We have a discount code. For the Flower Crown, they get €100 off it by using Flower Crown 100.
So Flower Crown 100 in the discount box or the voucher box or the code box will give you €100 off the price of your Flower Crown course. So how does it work? You get your two 20 gauge wires and you place them side by side. The idea of the gutter tape is the more you stretch it and the heat of your hand, it makes it sticky. So what you do is you attach the tape around the top of the wire, tuck it in, and it's this kind of like roll and pull technique, and basically you're taping the two wires together. It does take a little bit of practice, okay? And what I recommend you to do is maybe tape up about 4 or 6 of these lots, depending on the size of your head, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So you can see there's two 20 gauge wires taped together, and then I'm going to get another two 20 gauge wires, place them side by side, tuck the gutter tape around the top, and again, it's like with my left hand, which is my weak hand, I pull, and with my right hand, which is my strong hand, I roll. And as I said, obviously in our tutorials, there's a lot more detail kind of given. And again, Deirdre can come in close from different sides with her cameras and video it all from you so that you don't miss out on anything. So as I said, they do take a little bit of practice. Now what we're going to do now is make the wires a little bit longer. So I'm taking up 2 lots, and I'm now going to overlap them about 2 centimeters at the bottom. So where our 2 wires are overlapping, I'm now just going to cover just that little section there with gutter tape, and to be sure, we'll just go over a second time. It's really important that you stretch the gutter tape out as long as you can. So can you see the way I've made the wire longer? So again, in case you missed that, we're going to do the same thing again. So I have 2 wires. I'm going to overlap them, the top of this one, the bottom of this one, overlap them 2 centimeters, squeeze them together and catch them then, seal them together with the gutter tape, and I always go over it twice to be on the safe side. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place these, oopsie-daisies, side by side. But when I place them side by side, I'm going to leave one of them sticking up about 2 centimeters taller than the other. So again, this will be hard for you to see on the camera. Obviously in our online tutorial, Deirdre comes in close. But believe me for the moment, okay, one of the wires is about 2 centimeters taller than the other. And naturally, that's going to happen at the bottom as well. There's a reason for that. So now, placing them side by side with one longer than the other, I'm now going to gutter tape them together. Now some of you might say, Janette, why didn't you just put 4 wires together at the same time? You never get the same support when you do it that way. In Floristry, they recommend that the maximum number of wires that you should gutter tape together is 2 at a time. And if you need 4, build it up like I've done there. And if you need 6, build it up again, same technique. Now what I'm going to do you remember I left the 2 centimeters taller at the top? I'm now going to bend that over, to see, and that's going to create a loop later on. And at the bottom, I'm also going to bend that over, and that's going to create a loop at the other end. So you can see now why I staggered them, okay? Because the idea was that that piece of wire is obviously lighter than the actual support wire, which is 4 wires thick. That's only 2 wires thick. Now for the class, okay, it's much easier, and even for you yourself at home, is to work on this when it's dead straight. Don't start bending it around your head, bending it around your head to kind of create the size. Well, obviously what you could do in advance, and I'm just going to quickly cheat here, and put 2 wires kind of like side by side, and I'm just going to gutter tape the center part, okay? So this is just like a little trick, okay? So when the bride would be in front of me, and I'm now just going to do a little bend at that end and a little bend at the other end, okay, is I can then measure this around her head to judge what size her head is going to be. You can see the way I'm hooking them in together, and I can then say to the bride, do you want your flare crown that size or back here? And again, I can adjust it. So this would be a template, okay? But I'd never actually physically work on this piece, because when I straighten it back out again, it's all bent and crooked. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but Jamie Mac, you're going to make life difficult for yourself. So that's why I always do the template in advance. I can see they're affected out the window. And this is my brand new one. Okay, what's really important, okay, and again, because I understand this is a live class, so we cannot come in close because it gets too messy when Deirdre's trying to put it on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook. What I'm doing here is I'm going to place my first little bit of eucalyptus overlapping. Can you see the way, like the edge of the wire here? So it's overlapping the edge of the support wire, and again the hook is underneath. I haven't closed over that hook completely. I'm now going to break off a piece of tape because it's actually easier, and I'm going to gutter tape on that piece of foliage. Now again, it's really important, and hopefully you can see this, that piece of foliage is sticking about 2-3 centimeters over the top of the support wire. In the same general area, I'm now going to add in a flower, but again the flower is also overlapping the hook and the top of the wire. It's resting on that little piece of eucalyptus, and again there's the wire where it's bent over where my finger is, and can you see the distance that it's overlapping? That's really important. If you forget that, you've made a bags of it, okay, or a balls of it, and you'll have to go back and do it again. So then you can continue gutter taping down, and you can get your next flower. And again, it depends on how chunky you want to make it, you know what I mean? So we did mention there at the beginning, maybe for a little Holy Communion, so you may not want it too chunky. What I'm doing then is at the back of the wire is I'm adding in little bits of eucalyptus as I go along. Now again, it's up to you. Another option is that you could add in maybe little bits of gyp as you go along, and that would be gorgeous as well. You could also add foliage in between the flowers as you're making the flower crown to make it a little bit chunkier. Like see, I just added that piece into the front. So I have 3 flowers added on so far, and I'm working my way down. Now with some of the little bells or the little freesias, they have a little tail on them. So you'll see the way I'll stagger them slightly, and I'll add some of the tails coming out to the right hand side, some of the tails coming out to the left hand side. And it's the same with the eucalyptus as I added on. An odd time I added on top, and an odd time I added at the bottom. So I continue adding my flowers on, and this is all very, very light, because remember, this is for a child, but you know, even if it was for an adult, you wouldn't want it to be a ton weight. So keep it as light as you possibly can, and you can do that by using the silver wires that I showed earlier. Again, if we do have anybody that's just joining us now and is wondering, God, where's all the preparation work? We did all that at the very, very beginning. But the great thing is you can always re-watch this video. And the easiest way to re-watch it, so say even in the future, people are probably watching and saying that my little one's making her communion in 2 months' time. Share this video to your own page, and then you will always be able to re-watch it. You can rewind it, you can fast forward it, and you can watch it as many times as you wish. If you don't share it to your own page, you won't be able to find it again. So if anybody is watching there, hasn't got time to stay till the very end, or maybe has missed the beginning, just click share on the right hand corner. Automatically then it'll be added to your page, and you will be able to watch it. Because I gave a full breakdown at the beginning of exactly how many flowers that I'm using, and again all the prep work and how I can prolong the life of the flowers. So I'm just at the end of that little piece of tape that I broke off, and I'm now just going to add or break off another section. So basically I'm continuing on doing exactly the same thing. Now while I'm doing this, because this is going to take me a little bit of time, I would absolutely love if anybody has any questions. I may not get all your questions live, because sometimes the questions do come in fast and furious, but I will definitely go back and I'll respond to everybody that comments underneath. So even if you're watching this on the replay later on, let us know you're watching on the replay. Again, I always encourage people, let us know where you're watching in from, because it is interesting when we see, like, we have followers watching in from Australia or America or Africa Africa or Hawaii there the other day. Like, it is good for us.
Janette, Susie is asking, what other flowers would you recommend? She loves this.
Yeah, something else.
Amazing.
Yeah, like freesias are beautiful, especially for children. But you know what? The scent of them, even for adults, they're amazing. So in the tutorials, I have like where you can use spray roses or baby roses, and they're beautiful as well. I also have one, I think, where you can use Singapore orchids, or Singapore orchids is definitely a flower that you could use. Standard roses. Now, depending if it's an adult, you could use like large headed roses, but if it was a child or maybe an adult that didn't want something kind of too chunky, you could use maybe one of them smaller headed roses. I'm going to say supermarket roses, you know, like Tesco's, Lidl, Aldi, Marks and Spencer's, whatever it might be. So even them short little smaller headed roses, you could use them as well. Now, it's very hard for me to tell you like how many, because it depends on the size of the flower. But in the standalone tutorial, I go through each flower, and depending whether it was the spray roses, the orchids, the standard roses, the Germany, depending on the type of the flower, I will give you a breakdown of exactly what materials or what ingredients that you use. And obviously, if you've purchased the standalone course and you do have any questions, you have unlimited access to us here at the school. Drop us an email, info@flowerschoolireland.com, and again, we can give you a little bit of feedback, or if you're having any problems with your flower crown, we'll be able to help you. Now, that's obviously for people who have purchased the course, not for people that are just chancing their arm, okay? Because when you purchase the course, absolutely everything will be covered. Now, you can see at this stage, okay, as you come down near the end, it starts to get top heavy, right? So it'll start to bend over, right? And it can be a little bit difficult to work with. So I often find like is to continue, obviously continue making it, but you're going to hold it kind of slightly upside down. So again, I'm still adding in the little pieces of eucalyptus, okay? And again, like I kind of have a knack where I kind of like swing it over my head, right? But again, you can do it upside down. So this is what it's looking like so far. Now, these are a little bit time consuming, and like when you go to purchase them in a flower shop, like be aware there's a lot of work involved, and they are going to charge you big money because there is a lot of art and a lot of technique and floristry skill involved in making one of these. So again, if you're not interested in maybe making it yourself, go along to your local florist, and again, comment underneath there. We might be able to suggest a florist in your locality that will make these. Some people do their flower crowns and they glue all the flowers on. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but you'll never get the exact same style that I have done here with a wired one. Like, I know I'm probably old school, but there's nothing like an all wired flower crown or an all wired like halo bouquet, as we often call them. So again, I'm continuing on, adding in our little bits of foliage, our little bits of freesia heads, and again, I have just run out of tape, which is not a big deal. I'm now going to add another piece of tape. Now, just to let you see the back of it there, to see what it looks like. Isn't it amazing? Isn't it absolutely gorgeous? And like when it bends over, there will be a tiny little bit more space in between the flowers, where it looks kind of quite close now. But I purposely do that so that when I bend it over, I'll get a little, kind of a little bit more space. You know, the way we often talk about the birds and the bees being able to fly kind of in and out between it. So now I'm just adding on my third piece of tape. Now, that's not to say that you mightn't be on your fourth piece of tape. Depends on the length of the tape that you have. Again, I'm continuing on, adding on my flower. And as I said, it does get a little bit more difficult as you work your way down. I'm just going to push this table out a little bit, just so that I can give this a bit of a swing, because I find that when I do it upside down, I know it's probably not on camera, but if I actually go to tape it upside down, there's not as much pressure on my wrists, okay? So again, I have that flower added on. I'm now going to add in another little bit of eucalyptus, and I think I'll get another 1 or 2 flowers onto it. I'm saying 1 or 2 flowers because I have 2 flowers left on the table, so I might as well use them up. I actually have 3 flowers left on the table, so I'll probably go for 3 flowers. Now, as I said, some of my flowers have a little tail on them, you know, that way. So I've like tried to kind of work it that sometimes the tail is going to the right hand side and sometimes the tail is going to the left hand side. So again, just cut in that flower, and again, little bits of gutta tape, or not gutta tape, eucalyptus. Now, sometimes I add in the eucalyptus at the back, and then other times I add in the eucalyptus kind of near the front. I'm just kind of like using my own discretion, what I feel it kind of needs, or I feel what it's going to take. So again,
did you measure them out, did you, Janette?
I must have measured them out. I'd say I'll probably have to shorten the wire a little bit, but off camera, when I'm doing these for the online tutorials, if I need an extra few flowers, I just pause the video and we go wire and tape up another few flowers and we add it in. But sure, this is a live show, so there's nothing I can do. So I'm at my last flower, so just come along here. I'll just shorten that afterwards, so it's not a big deal, okay? So again, I'm just adding in my last flower. Bit of gusset tape there to catch it in. Oops, the daisies. This is where I'd love to be a cowboy and an Indian, you know, when they do the lasso over their head. And then I'm going to add in another little bit of eucalyptus, a little bit on each side there, just for a little bit of finishing up. The last bit of gusset taping, so again, another bit of, you know the way the cowboys do that over their head? There we go. And then, because I ran out of flowers, you can see there, I probably could have done with 2 more, right? I'm just going to cut that a bit shorter. I'm then just going to get myself an extra bit of gusset tape, because I had just ran out again. An extra bit of gusset tape. I'm going to go back over this part here, just to make sure it's really well sealed off. I'm going to gusset tape right to the very end there and give myself a wallop in the face, okay? So slap in the face with some fresh Freesias, nothing like it. There we go. Whoops, the daisies. And then I'm going to make my hook here at the bottom. Do you remember at the beginning? Now, obviously because the wire now is double thickness, it's a little bit thicker, but it'll be fine. I'll just show you. That's the great thing. It'll be all right on the night. You can get away with murder. So just see the way we have that little bit of a gap here at the bottom, okay? Don't have a heart attack yet. I'll have the heart attack in 2 minutes, okay? If this doesn't work out for me, because again, this is live, okay? But my plan is, that when I bend this one around, and do you remember I left the little hook here at the top, the way it's hidden in underneath? Do you remember back, if you missed this, you have to go back to the very beginning. And the only way to go back to the beginning is share it to your own page, and then you will be able to watch the start of it. So underneath here, I have another little hook hidden. So what we do is, see that flower there that's overlapping? This flower, or sorry, that flower that's overlapping is going to hide that gap at the bottom. So our 2 hooks, get out of the way there, eucalyptus leaf. So our 2 hooks are going to hook inside each other. We're going to close them underneath. Turn it around, and you will never know where I started or where I finished. And if you then decided to add little ribbons in there at the back, you know, to have 2 little bits of ribbon coming down, you could use a little bit of glue. You could wire it in with a silver wire as well if you want to. If you want to make it a little bit chunkier, you can kind of like zigzag the flowers by just using the silver wire. Is push them a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left. And all we need now, one head here is a bit too much, so I'm just going to pick that head out. Actually, I'm just going to cut it out. It's probably the handiest. There we go, because the silver wire is through it. There we go, just felt I didn't need that head. And there is our little flower crown, but all I need is a little First Holy Communion child just to model it for me. Anybody got any offers? Anyone got a little child there that'll model this for me? Put her name underneath. So, I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. That was giving you a little taste of what floristry is about. And our Module 3 course specialises in all types of wedding floristry. Like a lot more advanced stuff than this, but also a lot more advanced flower crowns than this. So whether it be learning how to do cascading bouquets, teardrop bouquets, all rose bouquets, most of our bridal work is completely foam free, as is this here. So probably 98% of Module 3 is completely foam free, using all kind of like environmental techniques. So whether it be your wands, your flower girls hoops, your flower girls baskets, your wrist corsages, cake top decorations, you name it, it will be covered on Module 3. All the way down to marketing yourself, dealing with the bride, ordering in the flowers, what it's going to cost you, what it's going to sell at, all the different techniques, you know, that way. So everything is covered, and if it's not covered, all you have to do is ask. When you sign up to our Module 3 here at Case Flower School, you become a member of our virtual interactive classroom. Plus you're signed up to our online tutorial with over 100 videos that you can re-watch as many times as you wish. Plus you have one-to-one access to me through our work special WhatsApp number. And again, you can ask me any questions that you want, and I can give you help and feedback on all the designs that you're covering. Again, I'd really appreciate if you shared this video. Again, if you know anybody that's interested in flowers, tag their name below. And if you have any questions, just post the questions in the comments, and I'm going to go back now in a little while and I'm going to respond to everybody. Thanks a million for joining. I hope you enjoyed it, and watch out for our next Friday live class next Friday at 11 o'clock. See you all. Bye bye.